29-year-old Taylor McFadden Robinson was called a rising star in the real estate world in Florence. Her family says she loved making people's dreams come true and was destined for success. But it all came to an end Sunday morning.
She was a mother, a sister, a successful entrepreneur, my very best friend. The system has failed us.
A lot of kids grow up in a household that has a lot of domestic violence. I happen to be one of those children that was raised in one of those households. Now, I rarely tell my personal business, but due to the circumstances surrounding these cases, I don't mind opening up a little bit and telling you guys a story that happened to me when I was younger. When I was a child, I grew up with a stepfather who, ran the house like a dictatorship. He put the meaning in treating someone like a stepchild. Now, he was a habitual abuser, often abused my mom, and things they weren't right. I remember being terrified, frightened, just wishing I could do something to help. When I was younger, going through these situations, I became fascinated with superheroes. If anyone knows me, you know that I'm a big superhero fan. I enjoy Marvel movies, etc. But what brought this on is that, just wanting to be a superhero growing up. I can remember hearing my mom being beaten from the next room, wishing that I could somehow miraculously, gain some superpower and swoop in and save the day. But needless to say, that never happened. Now, a situation occurred in my household. I never forget it. It was a Sunday. We had just left church. We got back home and my parents began arguing. Now, again, abuse in my household was a normal thing. He habitually did these things, and today was no different. He was arguing with my mom inside of the kitchen and things got out of hand. That's when I watched my mom take a knife and then she stabbed him in this region. Now, after she stabbed him, I'm the one that had to go and run and make the 911 call. Now, I only knew what to do because my mother prepped me just in case something ever happened to her. She let me know that if anything ever happened, run to a neighbor's house, call the police, which is exactly what I did. Now, on the day that this happened, my mom was simply defending herself. Again, he abused her on a normal basis. But I remember calling the police that day, and when they finally showed up, they never asked me any questions. They simply put my mom in handcuffs and took her to jail. They ended up taking my stepfather to the hospital, and once he left the hospital, he was taken to jail. Now, I never understood why both of them went to jail that day. I could never wrap my head around it because, again, they never asked me what happened. I could have been the sole witness to let them know, she was being abused and my mother was simply defending herself. But these type of situations are all too common when dealing with law enforcement. And this next case is no different. Stories where it seems like law enforcement just doesn't do everything they can or don't get to the bottom of the story, kind of trying to rush along to the next case. And sometimes it ends up very tragic. September 21st, 1992, the world would make way for Taylor McFadden. She would be born in Florence, South Carolina, a town that is instilled with traditional values. Taylor, or Tay-Tay, as some of her folks called her, and some even called her Baby Cakes, was a light for everyone around her. She was truly an inspiration. She would attend school in Williamsburg County. This is where she would attend elementary, begin learning the fundamentals of life, and even middle school. And even on into high school, she would attend Kingstree Senior High School, but she would ultimately finish out her studies at Florence County High School, the class of 2011. After leaving school shortly after, Taylor would become a bank teller at Wells Fargo, but that wouldn't be the last stop. Taylor had big dreams. She would ultimately end up leaving this job to pursue being an entrepreneur. Along that route in 2016, Taylor would join the United Real Estate Group, where she would become one of the top sellers. And it seems that real estate was her calling. Anything she put her hands on was sold quickly. And in a housing market in today, it's hard to sell a house. It's hard to talk people into, basically a lifetime of bills. But Taylor, this was her niche. This was her thing. She was able to sell houses at the drop of a dime. Now, while selling real estate, she would also open up her own businesses, such as a moving company, which she called Moving Up LLC, which is basically, genius, because she can sell you the house, and then after selling you the house, she could ask you, well, have you found any movers? If not, I have a company that will help you. I mean, she knew exactly what she was doing, but that wasn't the last of her ventures. She also was the proud owner of a nail salon called Pretty Little Princess Nail Salon, and she was even in talks of opening up a boutique and doing many great things. Only on the other side of all of that hard work and dreams lied her family. She had 2 sons and a husband named Duncan Robinson. Now, to everyone around her testimony, Duncan, he was always the guy with the temper. They felt like he was controlling, and the red flags were everywhere. Now, they would have their ups and downs, their quarrels, but after going through so much, Taylor had finally decided that she was going to leave him. This will be the year of 2021. Now, after the breakup, Duncan, let's say, didn't take this too well. He wouldn't leave her alone. She repeatedly asked him to, move on with life. She even ended up having to file a police report on this guy. Now, she would report that on March 12th of 2021, Duncan would pull in the driveway and block her car in, and then he would proceed to go around to the back of the house, where he would kick the door several times until the door finally gave in and he entered the home. But that would be the second incident. The first incident would actually occur a couple of days prior to that. He came to her home and he was trying to fight the contractor, basically acting a fool. Then again, on March 15th, Duncan would try to run Taylor over with his car. So Taylor filed a police report, and she was trying to get a protective order against her ex-husband. Only when she gets to court, this order is denied. The court would state that basically Taylor didn't have enough evidence to keep him away. So it was denied, and the judge recommended that they get a divorce, which is what she was pursuing. The last divorce hearing was set for February 7th of 2022. Only neither Duncan nor Taylor would make this meeting, because on January 23rd of 2022, Duncan would go over to her house and do the unthinkable.
29-year-old Taylor McFadden Robinson was called a rising star in the real estate world in Florence. Her family says she loved making people's dreams come true and was destined for success. But it all came to an end Sunday morning.
And to say that her life was cut short in this matter, something I can never get over. My family.
Police say Robinson's husband, Duncan Allen Robinson Jr., burglarized her house on Rice Planters Lane in Florence and shot her. Officers found the realtor dead inside.
It will never be the same for me and my family. She's major loss.
Robinson appeared before a judge Monday morning in Florence. No details about the murder were shared, but the victim's sister says Taylor McFadden tried to get an order of protection against her husband.
The system has failed us. My sister asked for a restraining order, and the judge denied it. Please do not allow the system to fail us again.
Duncan Robinson didn't say anything during the hearing. The judge didn't set bond for him, so he'll stay in jail for the time being. Robinson's family tells me she was a wonderful woman, mother, and friend.
My sister Taylor, if you knew her, you loved her. She was all about family, all about unity. If she could help you, she would.
I called the magistrate's office to check on the family's claims about the restraining orders. Now, that office says they cannot release information about orders of protection.
This story is sad. Taylor McFadden Robinson had the rest of her life ahead of her. She had sons to raise. She had things to accomplish, and yet it was cut short, by foolishness. Basically by a guy who couldn't handle rejection. And that story is all too common these days. I don't know what it is with men these days and, why they can't accept the fact that women move on. Women have their own choices. They can choose to live their life the way that they want to live their life. But some men, they become entangled with these women and they've been with them so long that they begin to look at them as property. And I feel like that played a big role in this case. It's sad. My heart goes out to the little boys. Rest in peace, Taylor McFadden Robinson. You were truly a light for others. At the beginning of this story, I shared you guys a situation that went on in my household. And, years later, nothing has changed. I have pictures of superheroes on the wall. I have action figures. In fact, here's one of them right here. Spider-Man. He was one that, he was one of my favorites because he was a normal guy that got into a accident. He received powers and it basically changed his whole life. And I want you to know that I'm not the only one out here like that. Everyone has to lean towards something to cope with what they're going through. A lot of people might look at it as, look at this grown man with action figures on the wall. But, they don't know the backstory. They don't know why I'm into these superheroes. The superheroes was just something that gave me faith. Something that helped me through when I needed help. Going through those situations growing up can be very mentally harsh. It can be devastating. It can be rough, Superheroes were my way out. Dreaming, just wishing that I had a superpower in order to help my mom was something that helped me cope with what I was going through. The way that I coped with a bad household was daydreaming. And not just about being a superhero, I daydreamed about everything. I can remember going out to parks and, watching the father play with his son and he's tossing them up in the air and, they're riding on his back and, that's something that I never got to experience that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you won't leave that relationship for you, do it for your child. So as of this point, I really want to talk to the mothers or talk to anyone out there who's in a situation similar to Taylor's. You can get out, do anything you can to get yourself and your family straight, to get them in a safe place. You do whatever you have to do because I know somewhere in the back of your mind, you feel like there is no way that your lover, your husband, would do to you what Taylor's husband did to her. But the truth of the matter is, that can happen to anybody. But I want you to realize that it's not just affecting you. This is something that affects an entire household. It affects the children. It affects how they process information and begin to grow in life, because me having to go through that situation and witnessing all the things that I witnessed, it's downsides to that. As an adult, it made me a cold person. I was truly somebody that I didn't care. I didn't care about anyone but myself, because of the simple fact I felt like all I ever had was me. And that was a way when I was living my life that was totally wrong. Something that never should have happened. But again, those were things that happened to me. Growing up in a household like that, it has some real negative effects. I held resentment toward people. I felt like I was cold-hearted. There was a lot of things going on in my life that I had to let go. Don't let your son or your daughter grow up to be like me. It's basically what I'm saying. Because superheroes aren't real. Life is. Life is.